control the worsening COVID outbreak in Hong Kong, Chinese President Xi Jinping tells the city's leaders they must take the main responsibility to halt the surge. The directive from Mr. Xi ramps up pressure on Chief Executive Carrie Lam as infected patients lie in beds outside overwhelmed hospitals.
Hong Kong's COVID-19 crisis is spiraling out of control. Infections have doubled in the past 24 hours. More than 4,200 new cases have been confirmed, along with another 7,000 suspected infections. But authorities say those numbers no longer reflect the full extent of the situation due to a backlog in testing. The explosion of cases has already stretched the healthcare system to its limit. Around 12,000 COVID patients are awaiting to be admitted to hospitals or quarantine facilities. Car parks and ambulance bays have been turned into field hospitals as healthcare facilities struggle to cope.
We observe that some patients are waiting outdoors. This is far from satisfactory. So we also feel very sorry for letting the elderly waiting outside in such a unfavorable condition. And that's why we are also trying to explore different waiting areas.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has said Hong Kong's government must take the main responsibility in tackling this fifth virus wave. He says their overriding mission is to stabilize the situation as soon as possible. Mr. Xi has called on officials to take all necessary measures to ensure the health and safety of the Hong Kong people.
Deborah Wong joins us live now from Hong Kong for more. Deborah, how have local authorities responded to President Xi Jinping's remarks?
Well, President Xi Jinping's remarks here, the choice of words is very telling. We're hearing terms like overriding priority as well as main responsibility. And so there's urgency for the Hong Kong government to really get that situation under control. And we're also hearing these same terms in Mrs. Carrie Lam's response to President Xi. And she says that Hong Kong will definitely be following his instructions. But Mrs. Lam also did say that the severity of the outbreak has far exceeded what the government can handle at the moment. Now, just today, we are seeing a daily high of 9 deaths, including that of a 3-year-old girl. And authorities are worried because a good percentage of infected cases are in the elderly population as well as young children, many of whom are unvaccinated. So earlier, you've just seen footage of the overwhelming situations at hospitals, and the hospital authority has in fact taken on pretty much a triage situation at the moment. So beds are right now reserved for the elderly, children, and those in critical condition. But Mrs. Lam did say that as daily caseloads keep increasing, Hong Kong needs to count on the mainland support. And already, her exact words used in this case was to leverage the advantages of a one country, two systems approach. Now, mainland China has already committed to send supplies like protective equipment, equipment as well as test kits, and these will be expected soon. But the message here is really clear. When Mrs. Lam says that she is counting on the central authorities' support, it's a very clear signal that Hong Kong will not deviate from a zero COVID strategy, and it will do right by the mainland.
Deb, in light of the urgency to get cases under control, how significant is this fight against COVID with the chief executive's election now coming around the corner?
Well, seeing as how we are only 4 days away from the start of the nomination period, the COVID-19 outbreak cannot come at a more disruptive time. Now, Mrs. Lam has not announced whether or not she intends to rerun a second term. And in every single press conference that she's attended over the last 2 months, she's declined to answer that question. But just yesterday, during her weekly briefing, Mrs. Lam did say that the exponential surge in cases cannot preclude the possibility of a delayed election. In fact, it was also quite interesting to hear President Xi talk about how the government should use the pandemic as an overriding priority at the moment. So the prospect of a delayed election could very well be on the cards. And it's also interesting to note that Beijing must approve any change in dates at the moment, because it has done so for the recent Legislative Council election, which was postponed by a year. And if election were to really go on, COVID-19 will no doubt be a hot button issue, and Mrs. Lam's pandemic approach will definitely be looked at.
Deborah, thank you for that. Deborah Wong in Hong Kong.